Hey everybody, welcome back to another Fusion 360 beginner tutorial. In this video, we are going to be 3D modeling the tip of this pen, or at least one like it, using the Revolve tool. So getting into Fusion, the first thing, as always, that we need is a sketch. The Revolve tool needs a closed shape and an axis to make its geometry. And I'm going to start by putting a line down here at the bottom, not worrying about dimensions. And that is our axis that we're going to rotate around. That is right in the center of the pen. Now I can go back to that line tool and create a little bit of a flat for the tip. Then I'm going to hit L for the line tool this time, the hotkey for it. I'm going to create the fat part for the end and then a little bit of a forwards transition there. And I can use the spline tool, put a point there and there, hit OK. And give it that kind of cool pen tippy curve. So maybe something like that. This spline tool works just like it does if you are familiar with like Inkscape or Illustrator. You use these handles here to change the slope and curvature of the line. So I'm just going to eyeball something, I don't know, maybe like that, and start putting some dimensions on here. So, 4 inches, that's a little bit big. This should be about 0.375 of an inch. Now I know the diameter is 0.375, so 0.375, but because I'm working on the radius, I'm going to type in divided by 2, and that'll automatically do the math for me. Now it looks like when Fusion scaled this drawing with my first dimension, it screwed up my spline, so I'm just going to redraw it. That's the simplest way to do it. Point there, hit OK, move my handles, and figure out what dimensions I'm missing. So this top here I know needs to be 1/8 of an inch plus 10 thou on either side, and all of that needs to be divided by 2. And excuse me, 10 thou on either side would be 20 thou in there divided by 2. And that'll give us room for the hole in the end of the pen. Now let's see, our proportions here are looking a little bit short, so what if we made that 0.45? That's a little bit better. Then we can make this flat part here a little bit shorter, maybe 0.1 inches. Yeah, that looks like a pen tip. I like that. Now you can see here that I have a closed profile. You can tell because it's shaded light blue, and when I hover over it, it goes dark blue. That means Fusion's happy with that, and I'm good to move into 3D land. So if I hit the Revolve tool, since I only have one profile in this entire document, it's just going to assume that that's the one that I want. Now I need to give it an axis. So we have the center line right there, and when I click on that, it gives me a preview, and I can just hit OK to finish that. And that is a start. But pens have, inside geometry. They're not just a solid slug. Like, this thing might as well be a bullet. We need holes in the middle of this for that to work. To cut these holes, I'm going to use the Revolve tool again in subtractive mode. So I'm going to take a sketch, and I'm going to place it on one of these planes that goes right through the middle. Now, this solid is kind of annoying and distracting as we work here. So I want to hide that, but I also want to have a context for where it is. So to do that, I'm going to use a tool called Intersect, which is under Create, Project Include, and then Intersect. I'm going to use the Body Selection filter, select our whole body here, and hit OK. Now I can hide this body, and it gives us the profile as if it were projected in from the side. Now I can just use the line tool. I'm going to hit L for line and put in our center axis. But these lines here are also kind of distracting, and I don't want them to be part of the final geometry. There is a special designation that we can give these lines that'll tell Fusion, hey, don't bring these into 3D land. Just keep them in the sketch. And that is this button right here, Construction Geometry. So if I press that, it'll do exactly what we want. Fusion won't bring these into 3D land, and they get much less distracting in the sketch mode. So now we can start drawing the inside geometry on this pen. All these pens have a smaller hole right at the tip. So I'm going to draw in that and give it a little bit of a height here. And then they transition at about a 45-degree angle to a wider bit for the rest of the cartridge. It'll look something like that. And we can start giving it some dimensions. I know this here is 0.125 inches. Except I need to divide that by 2 because we're working on the radius again. And I know this is about 3/16. So 0.1875, and again, divided by 2. It'll look like that. I don't actually know what this dimension is off the top of my head, but let's just assume it's 0.2 inches. And I know this tapers in at a 45-degree angle here. So that would be 135 in this orientation. And because it's all black, that means that there's no way we can move it. It is fully constrained. But notice it doesn't give us the light blue little ghost outline here, designating that it's a closed profile. And that is because the construction geometry doesn't count for closing off your profile. So I'm just going to hit L for line again and close off this end. Now it turned light blue, and if we hover it over it, it'll turn dark. So we can use this for our 3D geometry. I'm going to hit Finish Sketch. Let's show our body here again. So that's our pen tip, and you can see the outline of our hole. If we use the Revolve tool, it's going to guess that that's the profile we wanted to use again, and we can select an axis for it to rotate around. In this case, we can just select this cylinder here, and it's going to inherit that cylinder center line. And again, Fusion guesses correctly. We want to do a cut so that we are removing material, not a join or a new body or any of the other options. So we're going to remove that material, hit OK, and now we have a hole going through our pen tip. A hole going through our pen tip. But this needs to somehow attach to our pen, and I want to do that with threads. In this case, we need male threads coming out the end here from this pen tip. I could do this with another Revolve, but in this case, I think I'm going to use a extrude. Let's create a new sketch and click on the end and draw a circle about yay. And I know that these are going to be 5/16 inch threads, so I'm going to give it a 5/16 diameter. This time I am working on the diameter, not the radius, so I don't need to divide by 2. And I'm going to finish that sketch, use our extrude tool, and extrude this out. Now these are going to be awfully fine pitched threads, so I don't need to go too far. Maybe 5/16 divided by 2 should be more than adequate. I have a decimal point there that shouldn't be there. Let's delete that. There we go. And when I hit OK, now we have a body that we can thread. Now Fusion has a really good thread tool, but let's say I don't remember where it is inside the menu, which I don't, so it's easy to say that. Fusion has this great feature that you can access by pressing the S button on your keyboard. This is the Design Shortcuts menu, and it gives you a search bar. It's magical. So I can just type in thread, and it'll show up right there. As long as you know the name of the operation you're trying to use, you can find it through the search. So when I click on threads, I just need to click on my outside face here. It knows that it's a 5/16 inch thread, but I want these to be a really fine thread. We are using a 5/16 48, which again is just stupidly fine. Now, if I hit OK here, it's going to give me a preview of the threads with this ugly texture. It does that because it doesn't want to cloud your model with too much detail, which can slow down your computer and confuse systems for when you go to machine this. But if you're doing something like 3D printing it, or you just want it to look pretty, you can hit this modeled button, and it'll actually show you what the threads really look like. They look just like that. And the only last step is to add a few chamfers. Let's do a big one to the inside here, maybe 0.02. Is that too big? No, that's perfect. And then I can hit the little plus sign here to add a second chamfer. And these ones are going to be really small. So I'm just going to select those two circles. And this one, let's say just 0.05 or 0.005, 5/1000ths of an inch, just for a nice little edge break. And when I hit OK, we will have a finished model of a pen tip. Now this pen was a prototype I did, gosh, a couple years ago at this point, and this tutorial was kind of just a warm-up to get me back into pen designing mode so that I can actually redesign this and start selling it as a product. I do make other physical products right there on that mill behind me. If you'd like to buy something I make, designtheeverything.com. Otherwise, if you enjoyed this tutorial, feel free to subscribe if you need more tutorials, and share this with a friend if they have questions about how to do any of this stuff. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you next time.